Hey, seniors and senior parents. It's Miss Campbell, your dean. I'm just going over our senior project just so you all have a very clear expectation of what we're requiring from you in order to walk across that stage come June. So I know that we've done an all senior assembly that we reviewed all of this. However, I wanted to make something digitally so that you can refer back to it throughout the whole school year, making sure that you are up to date with your due dates and staying on top of your senior project. The first page of your senior project is a great starting point because it has all of your project requirements. It has a short description of each one of those components. It has the due date and the amount of points that it's worth. Reminder that the entire project is worth a grand total of 200 points. So just making sure that you are sticking together on these due dates and really sticking with the chunks so it doesn't feel like a very big, overwhelming project that has to be complete in a very short period of time towards the end of the year. So here's a little roadmap or a timeline that goes over those big due dates. We've got a couple of due dates coming up here in the first semester, which include your proposal, which will be due the day before we go on Thanksgiving break on the 26th of November, and your resume, which is due the day before we go on Christmas break, December the 20th. Then moving into second semester is where things start to get real. We've got our job shadow plus our reflection due on February the 28th. And then your portfolio is due the 31st of March. And then all of April will be presenting in our advisory classrooms. So just making sure that you have these dates, you know these dates, and that you are sticking to these dates as we move through the senior project. I'm going to start by going off those first two things that we are talking about due in the first semester, your proposal and your resume. So your proposal is going to be something that kind of a letter that's written to your advisory teacher that outlines what you're planning on doing in order to complete all the components that you need in order to graduate from Taylor Prep. So some of the big things include, how am I going to complete my community service hours? What is my plan? Or thinking about, like, what is my job shadow going to be because of what my future plans are, and how am I going to complete these things. It's kind of like a letter that you're writing to your advisory teacher, like, hey, this is where I'm at, this is my plan in order to get to where I need to be by the end of the school year. I do have examples, proposal letter example sample in your digital senior project, also in your folders, that kind of really shows you what that looks like and kind of what that expectation is. In addition to the samples, each component of the senior project has a rubric that goes along with it that really, really, really shows you exactly what we're looking for on each of these different elements of the project. So for the proposal, you can have that completed next to you while making sure that you go through each line of the rubric and make sure that you hit every single thing that we're asking you for. If you look on the rubric at the top, it's simply an I observed this or I did not observe this in terms of the rubric. So if I see that your letter is one page, got it. So just really make sure that before you even start writing any or doing any part of these components of your senior project, your first thing is not only to read through the descriptions, look at the samples, but really, really look at your rubric as you are starting to write this stuff out or get it starting to move forward in your projects. So your rubric is available. Remember, the proposal is going to be worth 20 points. And it will be turned into your advisory teacher. And then this will be the rubric that they're using in order to grade that. And then just a last reminder that this proposal is due the day before Thanksgiving break. So it's due November the 26th. The second part of our senior project that's due in the first semester is your resume. So it's very much a document that you're going to use in the future. So I really want to make sure that you all take your time and create a really good document that you can use to apply for future jobs or anything that you may need it for. So your resume, there's a sample on your digital and on paper Google form. You don't need to include every single one of these elements. I understand some of you don't have work experience, but things that we should definitely see is your objective, where your education, your service and volunteer experiences, any honors or awards that you've received. This type of stuff should be on your resume. And again, I've got a full rubric that is right after it in your project that can really help you kind of delve into what are they asking me for. And just one more quick plug. Every single one of these components, when you're completed, when you say, okay, this is my final resume, I cannot suggest enough that you have your final resume in front of you. You have your resume rubric sitting right next to it, and you're going through each of your rubric line by line, making sure that you have fulfilled everything that we're asking for you in terms of this component of the senior project. So both of these elements are due in semester 1. Now, that does not mean that you can't be working on your job shadow and your digital portfolio during semester 1 as well. Actually, when I think about job shadow, which is the next component of our senior project, this year, we're making a really big push for all seniors to be going to job shadows that are really relevant to what they want to do outside of Taylor Prep after you graduate. So just making sure that we are really selecting a career from a field that interests us and trying to do some network or researching in order to find somebody, whether it's in your local network, whether it's mom's friends or grandpa's buddies, I don't know, or if you can't find somebody on the home end of a field that you're interested in, please bring it to your advisory teacher or to us in admin, and we can open that up to our teachers and even the community looking for a good job shadow placement for you. And speaking of that, you do not have to have it be somebody in which we are affiliated or directly affiliated with. If you have a dream of being a lawyer, but you don't necessarily know anybody that works at an attorney's office, and us here at Taylor Prep are struggling a little bit, you can also take the initiative. Here's a phone call and an email template where you could just find businesses in your local area and ask them, hey, is it okay? I'm really interested in this field or a career once I graduate high school. My school does a job shadowing project, and I would love to come see what work looks like for you for a day. So you got options here. I'm just really begging because we don't want to waste time in our job shadow. Well, we can use this time to not waste time in our future. And what I mean by that is that you will not spend the money of your classes or get into the field of that career and then determine, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected it to be, or this is not what I want to do. You can actually use this time, this job shadowing opportunity, to really delve into a field that you think is something that you want to do. And it will give you kind of confirmation or not, like I need to find something else based on that just one day, which might save you some time and money in the long run. So again, if you're struggling to find a job placement on your own, please come to your advisory teacher or myself, and we'll find you somewhere in the community that you can do something that really, really will affect your future. This form is something that has to be turned back in. So once you find that placement, whether it be through us, through your home, through random people in the city, this job verification and evaluation form must be turned into your advisory teachers. What this form is you would give it to the person who you're job shadowing on the day of, the morning of, and then just make sure you collect it by the end of the day and then turn it back in. It just basically confirms that you were there, what you were doing, and whether you had good job shadow etiquette. And then the other part of this job shadowing component is not to just watch. I mean, it's very important experience to stick with your job shadow placement for the whole day and really get to see what their day-to-day life looks like. But you don't always get what that whole picture looks like in just one day, which is why we're asking you to host a little bit of an interview so you can get some more in-depth knowledge and some more background knowledge on the fields that you are looking to go into. So we provide some interview questions. You can by all means ask some more questions that are not directly on this interview question template. However, when we're thinking about writing our reflection, which is going to be the second part of the job shadow piece, we really want to make sure that we have some data, some evidence, some things that we can remember. And these interview questions will provide that as you work through your reflection. So there's 2 pages of interview questions. Again, you can ask more. You can ask less, but I don't suggest that. Just in terms of making sure that you can answer all of the questions that are on your job shadow reflection, which I'll get into in just a moment. But before I get into the job shadow reflection, it's very, very, very important that we're thanking the people who are allowing us into their work lives. So here's a thank you letter sample. You can email it or send it as a actual letter, but regardless, I'll need a copy, or your advisory teacher will need a copy, because this is worth 10 points of your overall job shadow plus reflection kind of area of the component of the project. So making sure that we are thanking them. So once we've done the job shadow, we found it, we've done it, we've interviewed it, we sent them a thank you letter. The last component of this is the actual reflection essay. We provided this template, which really goes paragraph by paragraph, asking you questions. And I will say we're asking for 1 to 2 pages. So when you answer each and every one of these questions in the reflection essay, like in this form, you will very easily get to those 1 to 2 pages. Just making sure that you're kind of going over, what does the site look like? What are some things you liked, didn't like? Was it what you expected or was it not? Is this something that you still want to look into in the future? What education or skills does it require from you moving outside of high school? So that reflection essay is a big component after the fact of really just taking, and that's why we're asking you guys to really find somewhere that actually speaks to you, or that actually has some meaning that may be something that you're interested in the future, because you're really going to be sitting back and reflecting on, was this a good experience? Are the people there happy? Is this something that I feel like I could do? And you don't want to be reflecting all that on something that you've never had an interest in the first place. So if you're struggling to find the placement, please come and talk to us and we'll gladly find you somewhere. Here is that rubric that goes along with the job shadow. Again, like I mentioned, the verification form, which you have to bring back into your advisory teachers, with 15 points. And then that thank you letter, which you need to either CC me on the email or print it out, is also worth another 10 points. So that's 25 points of the total 50 of the job shadow project. And then the remaining 25 points are going to come from that reflection essay. Again, if you're following that reflection essay document that was previous to this, most of these questions are all going to already be answered. But I will always, always, always tell you to print it out, have your rubric right next to it, and make sure that you've hit every single thing that we've observed that we're looking for in terms of your job shadow reflection and rubric. The last part, which kind of brings all of our stuff together, is the digital portfolio. It can be made on Google Sites or Google Slides. It's a presentation of all of these different elements in your senior project. It's a chance for you to really make sure that you have completed the components and you're providing evidence about how you did that. So if you look through your digital portfolio, on the left, it's going to have the task, which is really going to be, when you see a task, you can think like a slide. So we have a home page or an introduction slide right here. And then you can see that there's a checklist on the right side. The checklist is going to be a great place to start when you're creating this portfolio. If you can go through each of these things and put a check mark next to it that you've completed it, especially the artifacts, finding 3 usually for each of your slides, then when you go to look at your rubric, you'll notice that it's very similarly formatted, and that if you kind of go through these task checklists, then when you get to your rubric, you'll notice, oh my gosh, I already did most of this stuff just doing the checklist on the side. I will mention down here, these artifacts, they can look different for each thing, but you do have to we require artifacts, which would be supposed to be evidence. It could be a picture, it could be a copy of an assignment, it can be various things, a college acceptance letter in some cases, just making sure that for each of these different slides or tasks that you've provided the correct number of evidence to back it up. So we've got 2 pages here. And then, of course, your digital portfolio rubric. So something to really be looking at once you deem yourself complete. I'm done. This is a great opportunity to dig through it and make sure that you've hit every single thing that we're asking for. If you look, each of these orange headings is going to be a different slide on your Google Slides, or a different page on your Google Sites. So you can just kind of go through each of your slides and make sure that you've hit everything that's on these lines. Now the last part, This is a 2-page rubric, by the way, for your digital portfolio. So make sure you see both of the pages. Similarly to the digital portfolio rubric, the presentation rubric is also 2 pages. And it is a rubric of what we're going to be looking at when you present in April. Just a reminder that everybody's digital portfolio is due March 31st, regardless of when you sign up to present in April. Presentations, again, if you look through the rubric as you're completing your presentation, it will be very helpful to make sure you hit everything that we're asking. We do not want to see you just reading directly off your slides. So what I would suggest is coming up with some note cards for each of your slides and then making sure that you hit each of these bullet point elements on each of those times. But just reminding that for the presentation, you should be dressed professionally, and you can come in and present all of your very hard work that you've completed for your senior project. So if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, you need help with your job shadow placement or anything, you all know where to find me in my office, or you can always email me at 120.dcampbell@nhaschools.com. Let's go, class of 2025.